Hi everyone, welcome back. So today's card, I am doing a birthday card that a friend of mine asked me to make for a friend of hers, who's also a friend of mine, but they're quite close. And I've kind of combining a couple of stamp sets. There's a stamp in the Mama Elephant Everyday Monkeys. I'm using 4 of the little monkeys and 1 of the sentiments, but I'm actually going to mask off some of the sentiment because I wanted some of the words out of it, but not all of the sentiment. The sentiment's a bit sort of lovey-dovey, and that's not what this is. So I'm going to mix that up. I also used Lawn Fawn's frame dies, the mini frames, and I've grabbed my Zig clean color real brush. What are they called? My zigs. I've got my zigs out for a bit of sort of watercoloring kind of thing. And what I've also done is I've cut the frames out of the same color cardstock that is the base card. I have, which is an A2 card. I have a grey panel for the front, which you'll see in a minute, what we're going to do with that. And I've got the insert pieces for the frames. I've actually cut out of some Bristol Smooth, which is for me the best cardstock for Zig clean color real brush markers. There, I said it. It's the best cardstock for that. It just the ink just moves fabulously. I love it. And it's really easy, especially for beginners as well. So what I'm going to do with the panel for the front is use a Tim Holtz, I think it's called Bricked stencil. And I love this thing because it looks kind of grungy, of course. And I'm sort of, because it's not as wide as my panel, I'm going to tape off the side just so I don't get any on that right hand side. And I'm going to use some Oxide ink and tea dye ink. I think maybe a lighter antique linen probably would have worked even better, or a white pigment ink. I didn't have a white pigment ink, but the tea dye actually works really well because we'll bring in another color in a bit as well. Not for the brick, but for the edges, inking the edges and things. So I just putting on a layer of ink on there, super simple. Anybody can do this. And although these stencils are not meant to kind of line up so that you can go to the next, and keep expanding, I kind of made it work. And because these are oxides, when you go to sort of get rid of the line that kind of gets created naturally when you initially stencil, because you get to the edge of the stencil pattern, because they're oxides, you can kind of hide it because the oxide will just blend with itself. So it's so awesome. So it looks like a much wider panel than it actually is, if that makes sense. So got that on there and just a bit of clean up. And then what I'm going to do is spritz it with alcohol. So this is isopropyl alcohol. That's a big word for me. And I'm just literally spritzing with that. 1, because I didn't want to wait for the water to dry because I was kind of in a hurry. And 2, it will still react a bit with the ink. It was kind of a weird reaction, not the normal reaction that you get with water, but it works really, really nicely. And you still get that sort of speckly kind of thing going on. And it's a different kind of spritz as well to my distress sprayer. So it works out quite nice. And then what I thought I'd do is grab the little inner pieces and just get them stamped onto the each of the little shapes that are for the inside of the frame. And so just lining them up, but I decided to bring in my stamping tool. No, what's it called? Stamp platform. I'm using my Tim Holtz one. I don't have I have another one, but it's not sort of a branded one, if you know what I mean. It is, but I'm not going to talk about that one. But I love this thing. The more I use this, the more I love it. I've just used a temporary dot adhesive, which is that mess you can see on the base, on the grey. That's actually just like a temporary dot stick adhesive, sorry, that I've just rolled on there. It's in like a tape gun thing, and it just is enough to hold things in place, because I, with the best will in the world, do not have very much luck using magnets. I don't know why. They're on there, but I don't know why. So I do have a little trouble with this little guy, but I'll stamp him separately, the little one at the top. But In the other platform that I have, I always get a double stamp, because with a lot of those sort of platforms, or the one that I have and another one that's out there, I find that because there's a like a foam that you have to put in and then take out depending on which type of stamp you're using. So if you're using the clear ones, you typically will put the foam in there so that you've got the height, so that you can then use it with that, or you take it out and then you can use it with your rubber stamps. So, and I like that. I like that sort of versatility, but I always get a double stamp with my clear stamps. The rubber stamps are fine because there's nothing else underneath it, but for some reason that foam always shifts. So I've tried sticking it down, I've tried taping it down, I've tried doing all sorts of things with the cardstock, could not get it to work. So yeah, when I then got myself the Tim Holtz one, honestly, I love this thing. I wish I'd got the smaller one while it was still available. I cannot find that thing anyway, which is a bit sad, but it is what it is. But I have heard some wonderful things about the Misty, which also has like a foam piece that you put inside. I don't know, I've not seen, you know, everybody raves about it, so I can't see that it's the same as this other one that I've got. In that sense, there must be something that, I don't know, they work their magic and it works. So I don't know how it works, but anyway. Because I know a ton of you use the Misty and love it and never had have problems with it doing that double stamp. You know what I mean? Where it looks like a blurred line, and I can't stand it. So for me, this is beautiful. So anyway, that was a long story. So I'm getting these stamped, and just getting the small little square one. Just got him stamped as well now, and then I'll start to colour. Just going back to the platform, the other thing I love about the Tim Holtz one is that because there's nothing in there, you literally take the lid off, turn it around, and then you can use your rubber stamps in there as well. So fabulous. It's so clever. Anyway, so I have a couple of like brown shades, a flesh colour, a yellow, and I do bring in another brown tone later on. I can't remember what colour it is, sorry. But this is just personal preference as to what colour you want your monkeys. You can do them pink and purple if you want. Do you know what I mean? It's a personal preference. But I used a couple of brown. I think this is actually a dark oatmeal, if I remember right. The colours that I do have, hopefully I'll list them below. I'm sure I've kept them to one side. Yes, I have. So I will list them below for you. But all I've done is use the blender with one colour per area. So I just find that an easy way to get that shaded look without too much effort. And to be honest, for beginners, zigs are not inexpensive. They're a bit of an investment. I got mine for my birthday a good few years ago now. So yes, I have a whopping 60 of them, plus the blender. But you don't need all 60 of them. I have full set syndrome and I can't help it. I have to have the whole thing. But it's, and that's not even the whole set, by the way, but you don't need it. So you could have a very basic set of 12, maybe 24. I don't know what size the sets come in now. But you could have a basic set and still get this beautiful shading with one little set of them, you know, or half a dozen colors or whatever. So, yeah, don't get discouraged. You don't need the whole set. I'm a bit obsessive about this stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, so I just went along. I used the flesh color for the little faces and the inside of the ears, and I bring in a different kind of shade of brown for the bellies, just so it was a slightly different brown. And then, like I say, I think it's dark oatmeal is the main monkey color, and then yellow, as in the color yellow, the name yellow. For the color, because there's lots of different variations of yellows. I use that for the bananas. And then the dark oatmeal, I didn't use the blender pen on, but I used it for the ends of the bananas. You know, that little brown end bit on a banana. Anyway, so I just went direct with that. So again, it just brought in that color. So here's a look at one of them, and I will get the rest of them colored off camera. So there's all our monkeys colored in. I think they're just so cute. And these are not the minis. These are not the little agenda monkeys. These are just the regular size monkeys. And they're still just so damn adorable. So I've got my brushed corduroy distress ink in the regular distress ink, not the Oxide, because I thought the backgrounds looked a little stark and like they needed something else. So I decided to bring that in. And I love inking the edge of everything within an inch of its life anyway, so it was a good excuse to do that. And also my background's now dry, and so I'm going to bring in the distress ink, the brush corduroy, sorry, along the edge, around the edge of that as well. Again, it all ties in with each other and makes it all sort of cohesive. It's a big word for me again today, but anyway. So get that done, and now we can start to stick the, oh no, before I stick the frames together, I'm going to ink the edges of all the frames. And this weirdly, for some reason, reminded me of like toasted marshmallows. I know marshmallows are not yellow, but they just had that look about them. It was so funny. So I'll get the edges of all the yellow frames inked. I didn't bother with the card base, even though it's the same yellow as the frames, because the front panel, the bricked panel, is going to sit on the whole front of the card. So you're not going to see the rest of it, but it will still tie in with the card and with the frames. So inking the edges of all of those guys, and then I will get these frames stuck together. Now, I will say though that foam, I go back and forth on this. I do and don't like it for creating dimension. This is just fun foam. It creates enough dimension, and yes, it works fairly well, but my foam stretched as I sent it through the die cut machine, so I have to fiddle and faff with this for a bit to kind of line these up. In the end, I lined up the center as best I could, and the edges, some of them just stuck out more than the others. But to get around that, and just so that it kind of blended a bit better and wasn't so obvious, I didn't re-ink the little foam finger dauber thing that I've been using, but I just re-inked or inked the edges so that the foam then had this, actually had a toasted marshmallow look to it, but it also ties in and brings in that brushed corduroy into it as well. And then also it's not so stark, even though it's a creamy color, it's just not going to be that starkness that's suddenly going to be very obvious on the edges of all the frames, and just ties everything in. So this oval frame is probably the hardest one to get to do what I wanted to do, because it kept moving around like it does. So once I've got those stuck in place, oh, I've got one more to do, then we will get to putting the card together. So again, just using some wet adhesive to stick these together. It's fine on the foam. I think most things like that will be okay with a wet adhesive. Also, it's quicker. Can you imagine sitting there and trying to put bits of tape onto the foam or onto the card? I would put it on the card if that's all you've got. Not on the foam. You'll be there for a day and a half trying to put the tape on there and then get it off, and yeah, I think that would be harder to do. So put it on the back of the card piece if you want to use tape, if that's what you've got. Otherwise I would use a wet adhesive. So just pop in everything, sorry, not popping in, I'm not popping anything. Just inking the edges now of all these little frames. And I actually started, this might sound a little strange, but the one that I glued first was the one that I started inking first, because it would be the most dry. So yeah, that just worked better in my brain doing that. And it doesn't matter if you ink more of the yellow frame, it all adds to it, so it's fine. And this actually went really quickly. It was just a little fiddly to get those frames to line up. The other thing that you could do instead of using foam is to use a few layers of cardstock. So just cut the cardstock out more than 3 or 4 times, plus your main color for the top, unless you're doing it all in the same color, and then you'll get more of a chipboard kind of look. So the next bit is the sentiment. So I needed to put my frames on just so I could see where I was going to, like, spatially. That's a big word for me again. Not a big words today. I'm also doing 3 voiceovers, by the way, so it's like, woo. So yeah, just so that I knew what space I had left for my sentiment. I knew what my sentiment was going to be, but this first sentiment here is the one that I'm going to be using, which is from the Everyday Monkeys from Mama Elephant, which is where all our monkeys came from. But I also wanted to work out the best way to get that on there and what space I had, which is the whole point of putting the frames there. They're not stuck down, obviously. But I want to use 2 words out of the sentiment. I think I may have said that the sentiment's a little too lovey-dovey for this card and who I know it's going to. So I wanted to use a couple of the words in it because it kind of makes sense. They've got like their own inside joke, which is where the chimp thing comes in. But I didn't want it to be too lovey-dovey because they're really good friends, but that's, you know, that's where it is. So I'm masking off, that's essentially what I'm doing with a bit of washi tape, the words that I don't want. And then I'm going to use some Archival coffee color ink. I think the name is Coffee. And use that just so we get it. We can now, because we're doing this, we can actually get 2 different colors in our sentiment as well. So that makes it kind of fun. So then once I've inked up the words that I do want, I'm taking the tape off. Don't forget to take the tape off or you will stamp that onto your project. And then I'm going to stamp it in place where I want it. The thing I was a bit bummed about is that there must be an oil or something or residue on the stamps, which actually I did know this. So I should have stamped it a couple of times before doing this bit, because the oiliness or whatever it is that's on that stamp from manufacturing, it actually transferred the word onto my background. So I was a bit miffed, but I think we'll be all right. The other word I managed to cover with this sentiment that I used here. So I've got the Chimney Bananas stamped in the coffee colour, and then I'm using Archival jet black ink to stamp the other parts of the sentiment. So the next 2 parts are Have A from one of the Lawn Fawn stamps, and Day. So it says Have a Chimney Bananas Day, which I thought was hysterical, and hopefully my friend will like that too. And then I've got a Happy Birthday from another Lawn Fawn stamp set, and they're about the same size font and same font, but the Chimney Bananas is quite nice because it's in a different colour and it's a different font, so it kind of just made it for a cool sentiment, I thought. So and also I wasn't going to use the same yellow as the frames, because I don't think it would show up that well, so that's why I went with browns. I thought the monkeys are brown, it kind of ties in, you know, all sort of, again, quite cohesive and works together. So next thing I'm going to do, I believe, is put the before I put the frames down, I actually was looking for something to put over the word that it had sort of transferred from the whatever was left on the stamp from manufacturing, like I said. But the bananas and that are in the stamp set are just going the wrong direction, so it just wouldn't have worked out there. And I didn't want to put a heart on there again. It's not the right thing for this particular card. So I decided not to worry about it too much and just get the rest of it stuck down. So now I can put my frames in place with, again, just using some wet adhesive. It's just the easiest thing. Sometimes with these projects, wet adhesive rules. It's simple. You've got a little bit of wiggle time depending on the adhesive you're using. If you use a collage medium, which you can get from Tim Holtz, it's in a bottle form, so you can use it as the adhesive, which is what it is, but you can use it in that form the way I have now. You don't have a lot of time to think, so you need to be kind of quicker or just be okay if it's not quite where you were thinking it was going to go. But it is a very strong adhesive as well, so I will next time get that. I've tried to transfer some into another little bottle like the one I'm using, but yeah, that was not fun trying to do that from the jar. But it's a really good adhesive, but this one has been working really well. So I get a little bit of wiggle time and then they stick, and it's lovely and it's in place. Now I thought I was going to have a little trouble, just sort of almost like an inlay technique to get the inner parts of the frames, the little pictures, back in, but they actually just went straight in. So I don't know what happened there, but that worked out even better than I thought it was going to do. So I'm getting my little monkeys in place, and I love the fact that these little lawn fawn frames, it will obviously cuts the inside piece as well, so I cut them out twice, which I hope I said at the beginning. So I had two different colors, but it also puts stitching around both parts, which I think is just so lovely. So getting these all stuck in and in place, and then that's it. That's pretty much it. I'll now put this whole panel to the front of the card base, which is the same yellow. And it's like a deep yellow. I think this might be like a crushed curry or something, like a Stampin' Up crushed curry, something like that. I had some odd pieces, like odd cards that have just been hanging around, and I wanted to use them. So I thought actually that could be a nice colour, especially with the bananas and monkey theme. So I thought that might be quite a cool thing to tie in, and also for a guy's card. I struggle with masculine cards, so I don't know why. I was a bit of a tomboy when I was growing up, but I still just don't. I just struggle with it. I hope I'm not the only one who does, but yeah. Anyway, got that stuck to the front of the card. I'll stop waffling now, and that's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. This was actually a really nice card to do. It gave me a bit of a challenge because, like I say, it's a more masculine themed card for like a guy, but I thought it turned out really cute, and I'm chuffed as hell with my sentiment and how I managed to sort of make the sentiment. So there's a little bit of a frame on there, but it's basically, that's your card. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.